All right, hey, how's it going, everybody? Hope everybody's doing good and life's been treating you fair. Things are going good here. No rest for the wicked, but things have been going good here. As many of you know, we had, if you follow me on Instagram or checked out my latest YouTube video, I got rid of the pecan sandy starts in my grow just because I was able to locate some blue magoo cuts that were really supreme health, and it was going to save me a lot of time, which is kind of a good segue here into what we're talking about here. Stand by. All right, sorry guys. So anyway, so it's gonna buy me some time. It saves me probably a month to 5 weeks is what I'm estimating from those pecan sandies to kind of get to the point where the blue magoos are. And I don't want to waste another month. And with the undetermined flowering time of those pecan sandies, the Angolan red part of the cross had me really nervous about a potential really long flowering time. And unfortunately, I kind of need my room to go on a pretty decent schedule. So I kind of had to bite the bullet and pull the trigger and get the starts. And, you know, we wasted a little time and a little money, but I would rather be ahead of a potential problem and just rectify it, you know, and go with my gut. And my gut was told me to go with those blue magoo. And so far, so good. I'm going to do a follow-up video here really soon to show you guys how the transplant went, the plant layout. I'm going to have to do a lot of low-stress training to deal with the plant count situation here in Washington. But compliance is good, right? So, but anyway, the kombucha biz, for those of you that are interested, we're almost done with our first ferment. We're going to start a secondary ferment tomorrow and lining up our inspections. So fingers crossed that all goes well, and in you know, a few weeks time we'll be able to start slinging some booch. But I wanted today to be really kind of brief. We missed last week, and to be honest with you, I didn't want to make this a weekly thing, and I think really we're only going to have one or two more of these, you know, kind of based on what kind of feedback I get from y'all. We will probably be wrapping these up in the next couple weeks. I'm going to do a kind of a flowering period, pre-harvest one to kind of walk you guys through my process, and then a dry cure rosin press type deal, just to kind of, so we've got like a beginning to end kind of one contiguous deal on how I handle my garden and kind of the minimalist approach. And then hopefully with your guys' participation in chat, we can embellish, and I really enjoy hearing about kind of your guys, what you guys do, especially the Korean natural farming guys. It's really piqued my interest as of late. So after we talk about the plant sexing, you know, I just kind of wanted to open it up to a little Q&A. If we don't have any Q&A tonight, then this will be really short and brief. The next one, I imagine, will have a little more length to it because, like I said, this isn't really exactly a no-till topic, but I'm excited about it, and I think that it's kind of a game changer in a sense. So, plant sexing, traditionally, you know, we're all familiar with that kind of tedious process, you know, of separating the boys and the girls, and you know, and it's fun and it is what it is, but it can take, you know, 2 to 3 months from seed. Typically, you know, how most folks do it. There are some other techniques that I've used successfully as far as like, you know, cracking the beans and then growing them till they have 2 or 3 nodes, even in a rapid rooter. You know, and just kind of letting the roots happen, making sure you're on top of the fresh nutrient or however you're doing that, fresh water, fresh aloe. At the time I was doing it, I was using like advanced and stuff. So I kept it fresh, nutrient bathed over those roots, but you can force flower them inside inside a seedling tray before even transplanting them. And so, and that can save you a few weeks and some materials and whatnot. But my main problem with this, the traditional sexing part, is the forced flower and re-veg, because occasionally a plant just doesn't make it back from that. And if you've got, if you've got limited resources, or they just grow funky for a while, and it takes them a little longer to re-veg to normal, and sometimes they don't ever come back normal. And some people would say, well, that's just kind of a way to cull them. But in my mind, if you can eliminate that stress from ever happening, would that plant be problematic in the end? I think that's a question that deserves a further look. But I always look at ways to eliminate stress to the plant at any stage. Because I think of the lack of stress is going to equate to the truest expression of the plant, to a certain degree. Now, there's some natural stressors that actually help, like when the harpin protein is released and that kind of thing. But re-veg type stress and insect infestation stress, those type of things, those can cause irreparable harm to the kind of arc or trajectory of the plant, and it can sometimes they never really recover. So this new plant test sex kit from Phylos Bioscience in Portland, to me, is just unbelievable. You're basically, all that's required is you grow your seedling out to about 7 to 10 days, and then you take, all that's required is you just take that first embryonic leaf. When the plant comes out, it's the round cotyledon leaf. Cotyledon. I sound like a genius, right? Cotyledon, I believe. I'm sure I'll get corrected. But it's that first round leaf that comes out. It's the embryonic leaf. They can take that leaf and basically run it through their equipment and tell you whether there's a Y chromosome present or not. And to me, it's $15 if you're doing individual or small amounts, and I think if you start doing larger amounts, it equates to $10 a seed or a plant that you're testing. And I've gotten several comments about it being expensive and it not being worth it, type of thing. And in my mind, a $10 investment just to spare your plant that potential stress from, not potential, but stress from the flower re-veg is worth it to me just alone. I mean, I'm paying $15 to save it from that stress, and to know, okay, well, these are my females, these are my males, and you know what to do with them appropriately at that point. There's not a lot of time and energy wasted on growing the plants, not knowing what they are, and so to me, it seems like for pheno hunting and whatnot, it could really speed up time, and most importantly, in my mind, eliminate that stress from the plant, from that whole process. It's a female, you don't even ever have to flower it, until it's time. And so to me, that's worth $15. It's worth more than $15 per plant for me to stave off that stress. So that was my main topic of discussion tonight, was just kind of talking about what's happening here with Phylos. And I believe they'll ship these out to any state that's legal, because as long as you're not sending the serrated leaf, it's legal to send throughout the United States. They've got a really nice website, and I'm not, I don't know them or anything. I just am excited about the service, and I think that it's worth. They've done tens of thousands of tests with 0 failures as far as plant identification goes. They've also got some other genome mapping and stuff like that going on, which is a little above my abilities to understand, but I think lots of you guys out there who are into breeding might find it interesting and worth checking them out. But that being said, I was just gonna leave it open for any kind of no-till questions or any questions in particular. We we can just, I'll sit here for a minute and let the chat catch up. But we've been pressing a lot of rosin lately, and that's kind of been taking up a bit of my time, and I don't like the product to sit around too long, and I'm afraid it's going to change the consistency of the rosin. So I'm getting a chance to see how what the difference in curing times is happening with the actual finished product of the rosin. Well, it's good to see you guys out here, Urban Farmer, Jay Keefe.
Do you set seeds and how have you tried?
Okay, Zen Cannabis is asking if I've sexed seeds before and have I tried. And I'm not sure what you mean, if you mean by like just actually looking at the seed and telling. I've always just grown them out and flowered and put them into a flower mode and waited for that pre-flower to come out and then re-vegged them immediately. As soon as I got confirmation of male or female, immediately throw them back into re-veg mode. Yeah, Captain Kind, but a panel of no-till guys. Yeah, you know, it would be good if I was planning on doing an actual kind of show, but I'm really not. This is not exactly my thing. I wanted to try to find a way to deliver this basic information to folks without doing weird videos on my phone, and I don't have equipment or gear, like a camera or anything. So this to me is just kind of like the easiest way to consolidate information without having to shoot a 20-30 minute video on my phone. That would be weird with no, I don't know. So I think this is where we're going to stay with it. I've tried to be on some of the other, like the Trichrome Chaser, and to me there's a lot going on. I'm not knocking them at all. I have a hard time like interjecting when there's a lot of people talking. I don't want to. I'm just not one of those guys that's going to step on other people's toes. So I have a tough time with that panel thing at the moment. But I definitely hear you. I wish sometimes there was more people right now to kind of chime in, because I don't want to drone on and on.
Favorite strain?
Favorite strain? So far, I think Lace and I can both agree that we like the Sage a lot. This Sativa Afghani Genetic Equilibrium. We really loved how that grew, and the flavor was incredible. The material was great. We've actually got a Sage cross from West Coast Genetics that we're kind of sitting on. We're actually going to be popping with this plant test kit. We're going to be doing some of Titan's gear, the Square One Genetics. We're going to send a couple of the peanut butter cookies to be tested to see if we can get hopefully a couple females out of there. And then we've got a couple more slots, and I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do with those. We've got some Redline Genetics as well, and that are looking pretty tasty. So I've got to do make some decisions as far as that go, but we're definitely doing the peanut butter cookies. But yeah.
Doug High is asking, is there such a thing as too many worms?
Doug High is asking if there's such a thing as too many worms. I don't think so. I mean, I imagine there can be too much of anything, but from my experience, I think, what will happen is that the worms will kind of regulate their own colony given the space that they have and the amount of food that they have, and that they won't just like overproduce until they're pouring out of your beds or whatever. That they'll find a kind of a homeostasis that works for them. So you could introduce and overpopulate your beds, and in time it would just regulate itself out, from my basic understanding.
Do you cure first, then make bubble hash or rosin?
Somebody's asking if I cure first before I make the bubble hash or rosin. And before I did, and this time with the rosin, I just kind of dried it and then put it into bins with that. And so it's kind of doing a cure, but the first half of it or so was uncured. And from what I could tell, there's not really a difference in consistency and flavor. So I imagine if we cold cured, like if I was actually prepping the material for the flour material to sell as flour and was cold curing it for a very long time in very cool conditions, that's a test I've yet to do, because I've just kind of been in the mind of processing this all to rosin. So it's all just kind of getting dried, stuffed in bags and pressed. And yeah, so.
There's a lot of people asking about the peanut butter cookies. Wait, peanut butter cookies? What is that?
Peanut butter cookies. Man, I can't remember. Titan told me the parent genetics from there, but I'm wanting to say there's some do-si-do in there, but I'm not really sure. So I'll get back to you guys, and I'll post it in the description of this when I post the video up, exactly what the parent genetics are from peanut butter cookies. But it's from Square One Genetics. Check them out on Instagram. It's THC Titan actually sent me those beans a couple months ago, and I've just wanted to wait until I had my veg shit together before, wasting his time and mine and popping beans that I couldn't properly care for. So I've got the veg room dialed, and we're ready to get it going. So
with no-till, it seems feeding the soil, is it tough knowing when to add sugar, microbes, enzymes?
Okay, somebody's asking about with no-till, if it's hard to decide when to feed your soil the enzymes and whatnot. And for me, it's not, because with my minimalist approach, I've just kind of I'll hit it with tea, with the microbial tea and the enzymes right before I transplant my new cycle. And that's usually right after I've re-amended the nutrients and the minerals. So, and that happens every other cycle. And so far that's been going okay. I've been recommended to amend every cycle, and I might go to that. But so far I've been doing it every other cycle, and the beds have been producing really well. And I don't really try to guess what the soil is needing. I'm just assuming that it's all there based on what my plants are telling me. And so when things are all looking all good in the canopy and my cover crop plants are all looking healthy, because they'll start to show micro deficiencies, or the thrips will attack the clover, before they hit the canopy. And so, I just kind of let the plants tell me through their health, right? What's going on. And so far, my formula of having, a very thoroughly amended bed, and the microbial inoculation, and then the enzyme hit at the beginning, so far has worked well, and I haven't needed to kind of feel the need to redo it during the grow cycle whatsoever.
Yes. Everybody around here, Humboldt County or Humboldt City, tell me that there will be an accumulation of salt if I don't flush. Comments? Also that this approach is prone to
boisterous. Okay, so there's a question out there about this method. Sorry, I gotta kind of get acquainted here. About there being an accumulation of salts in the no-till beds, and boisterous. Salts, I think you would have to have them in the water for them to accumulate. So the only thing where there's potential accumulation, I filter out the chlorine and the chloramine out of my water, but we don't have chloramine here, so I filter out the chlorine and with carbon filtration. And so the calcium and the hardness that would build up like in our sinks or whatever is actually just worm food, and so that stuff is actually helping benefit. So there isn't really a buildup. Now, if you're using a fertilizer, that could contribute to some kind of buildup. But in the no-till beds, you're feeding just fresh water, and then whatever kind of minerals that could build up or create deposits that are commonly thought of as salt buildup, but it's usually just calcium, that gets consumed by the microlife in your soil. And I've never heard of no-till beds being prone to boisterous.
Somebody saying Bud Rocher says, truthfully, the panel is entertaining, but at this level, I feel I get more knowledge for the time spent watching. So thanks. Do no-till gardens improve consistently over time, or best to restart?
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks for that. I agree with you as far as the information delivery. The panels can be very entertaining, and I think it's great. I personally don't have 3 hours to devote. That's like you guys probably know by now. I pop on for an hour and bounce. I've got 3 kids, multiple things going on in my life. So I wish that I had the time to devote that. So I much prefer to be able to just sit here for 30, 40 minutes and just kind of hit you with a blast of info, and then we'd be on our way. But as far as the no-till beds needing to be redone or started over, no. The whole idea with regenerative farming practices and the no-till kind of ethos is that you just kind of leave it be and let the natural process, which has been there and refined itself over millennia, just do its work. We're really, once again, back to that first talk, we're facilitating a sacred union, and the best thing we can do is give as many of those elements that union requires, and just kind of sit back and watch and let it happen. So the more balance you have in your system, the longer it can go. You can let a no-till bed dry out and everything, all the microbes would die, and you're basically left with the sterile soil. You could start to water it again, reintroduce amendments, reintroduce nutrients and minerals, and then also like hit it with the compost tea and bennies, and boom, before you know it, you got a living soil again. So provided you keep everything there that the soil needs and that the plants need, you will never have to reset the beds, as it were.
Do you need to reamend if you top dress and feed fish through its cycles?
Well, I think when somebody's asking if you need to reamend, if you what was that with top dress and feed fish? If you top dress and feed fish through the cycle? No, I wouldn't think so. It depends on the volume and how complete your top dressing mix is. Now, if you're just top dressing kind of one element of a complete reamend, then you're gonna be missing some key components, and over time you'll have an imbalance somewhere. And so you want to make sure that if you're going to reamend during the cycle, that you're doing a complete reamend, with the whole a wide array of nutrients and minerals. So you're not building up an imbalance of one thing or another, or starving the soil from one element of that.
Dirtman Dan asks, favorite type of soil aeration?
Dirtman Dan's asking favorite type of soil aeration, and really it's rice hulls and pumice. That's those tend to be kind of what I've had the best results with. And the soil I got from Keep It Simple up here in Washington, it came pretty heavy with not a lot of aeration in it, and I didn't add any to it. I left it kind of heavy, and we've really had great results with it. I see a little bit of pumice in there, but I think that in the next 6 months or so, I'll probably introduce some rice hulls. But I think that for me, that kind of ship has sailed somewhat, because I'm not interested in going in there and tearing up my beds. They've been doing really well as they are now. So pumice and rice hulls.
Do you use LAB in your beds? If you do, how? Foliar and water in? And then somebody asks, what is that?
Right. Captain Kindbud is asking about LAB, and that I don't. Once again, that's a facet of this organic gardening and regenerative farming practices that I've just yet to dabble in, because I've really been hitting that kind of minimalist thing pretty hard, and I'm really interested. I know there's a lot of people out there that are very knowledgeable. Blunt Thumb with the Trichome Chasers, this is one of those who's really knowledgeable, and I think that's an area that I'm definitely interested, because it kind of goes hand in hand with the kombucha, with fermentation. It's something that I'm interested in, and I think that it's kind of calling me whether I'm going to adopt it into my cannabis cultivation practices or just start with my veggie stuff. You know, I think I'll probably just start with my outdoor and leave my cannabis as zero input as possible.
Big Ed 1961 asks, what level of CL2 does it start affect the microbes? How do you dechlor through aeration or chemical?
Big Ed, you're asking about what level is that? What level of CO2 does it start to affect the microbes? I'm not sure, but for my I'm not sure if that's what you're asking. If you're asking something else, because it looked kind of choppy on there. But the dechlorination process, I'm just using like a 2-stage carbon filtration, like a sediment and 2 carbon filters, and then it goes right to my blue mat reservoir.
Virginia Living Organics asks, have you had any mushrooms grow from your soil? Ever think about adding inoculated substrates?
I have had mushrooms. Who is this? Virginia Living Organics. Yes, I have had mushrooms spring up at the base of the plants in my beds. And I have thought about getting inoculants and inoculating the soil with different fungi, but once again, I keep beating the same drum, and I feel like I'm singing the same tune. I'm just trying to like kind of doing an exercise of letting things be. So as soon as I plant the plants, you know, I'm really not thinking about soil inputs whatsoever. I'm monitoring moisture levels and observing the plant at that point, because once the plant hits the soil, in my mind, I'm just letting it go. Oregon Bud Man, what am I amending my beard with? Strong Nordic genes. Strong Nordic genes. I saw THC Titan say KNF is the future. I'm starting to feel that way more and more. You know, I think that there's something to it. I would love to see the application of it. Now that I've got, you know, I have a good solid year's worth of data with this minimalist approach, and if I slowly started to implement KNF practices to see what my yield increases are like, or what the quality of the product is like, you know. But right now, I really am very, very happy with the quality of the product. And so if there's a way we could get more of it by some natural, cheap, environmentally responsible inputs, then I'm down. I wanted to do a quick shout out, and I didn't do it earlier, to Living Soil Symposium. They did a shout out to me on Instagram, and I really appreciate it, because those guys are like people that the people involved there are all people that I look up to and highly respect. And if you are anywhere near the area later this March and can go to the Living Soil Symposium in Medford, I highly recommend it. There's 2 days of nonstop information and networking, and I anticipate to meet up with a few folks that I respect, and it's going to be nice to be able to shake hands and exchange ideas and talk about the future of organic cannabis cultivation, because it's really up to us to set the standard and, you know, show people that, you know, it can be done, not just people, but the people that are looking to start businesses, that it can be done in a sustainable manner that's good for everybody and honors the plant.
Tony Blowing's asking, do you recommend a moisture meter for new growers in no-till?
Tony Blowing's asking about a moisture meter for new growers in no-till. I personally, I've tried to do that. I've got the blue mat or the blue mat kind of moisture meter thing, and tried to get on it and see what if it could give me data that I could find useful. And I just could never get the thing to work properly. I never felt like I was getting good readings, and really I just I go by the old hillbilly way, and if I can reach down and grab a handful of my soil and squeeze it as hard as I can, and just a little drop of water comes out, that's kind of my method. So I've got my blue mats dialed, and in starting on my 4th cycle now, and they've yet to lead me astray, you know. So occasionally one will get, like, a worm will crawl in one of the drippers, and I'll have to kind of flush it out because it won't be dripping down the line. But I've got so many drip lines in my bed that it compensates. So moisture meters, they could be good for some people if they, if they can establish a baseline and really use that data. I just kind of use the old hillbilly squeeze method. All right, then. Well, I think we'll sit here for a second more. I don't know if I have anything else to talk about. If nobody else has any questions, we'll probably wrap it up. I don't know if One Thumb and the Trichrome Chasers have their organic thing going on after this. I think they were.
What is the Blue Mat moisture meter other than the Blue Mat itself?
Oh, Chronic's Cool is asking about the Blue Mat moisture meter. I'm probably not calling it the right thing, but it's a moisture meter that I got through Keep It Simple Farms. It's got the same Blue Mat little cone or ceramic, probe, and it's attached to a big plastic thing with a digital readout on the top, and it tells you what your moisture level should be. So you hydrate it just like you do the Blue Mat dripper deals, and it's a independent probe that you could put in random places in your bed or your pots that will tell you the moisture based on whatever kind of moisture reading they have. And I'm not really hip to the device. A lot of people have them and use them. I just didn't really find the value in it.
What are you puffing on?
Oh, well, I'm puffing on the grease monkey flower. Somebody else, that's the other thing besides the sage. I'm really, really impressed with the grease monkey. The particular pheno that I got was a pretty Gorilla Glue heavy, very gassy. And I'm a flower head big time. I know I've been going everything to rosin, but that's just for economical reasons. But we puff flower, and that's our preference, and I don't think that's ever going to change. Yeah, nothing tastes quite like that nice killer bowl of fire.
Ever try one node and flip technique?
Oh, somebody's asking if I ever tried the one node and flip technique like the Jungle Boys are kind of pioneering. I haven't. I've yet to have the nuts to do that. So I just haven't. I haven't been able to get myself to do it. I like the idea of it, and I mean their results are undeniable. So, is there something to it? Who knows? Their numbers don't lie. The quality of their product don't lie. I know I'm a no-till guy, and Jungle Boys are Veg Bloom, and but I've got a lot of respect for them. From the IC MAG forums, Jack Mayoffer was an open source guy, would always get back to people even when he was swamped with questions. So I've kind of continued to support them, even though they've gotten really big and are I don't know, poised to be a giant.
South Texas asking minimum container height or minimum bed height, and also can I use red colored lava rocks for aeration?
What's his name?
South Tex.
South Tex is asking about minimum height for the beds in kind of. I think you're gonna want. My beds are a foot tall, and they're not to the brim, so I'm probably at like 10 inches depth for my medium. And for a good, healthy no-till system, you want to have as much volume of soil as you can manage to put in your space. And this is why. And I used to keep aquariums a lot, and this is an analogy that really kind of seemed to fit with me. A smaller aquarium is harder to keep things in pH balance when you have living things in it, because there's less water there to act kind of as a buffer for the solution. So if you have 5 fish in a 1-gallon tank, and you put those same 5 fish in a 20-gallon tank, it's going to be way easier to keep that 20-gallon tank stable. So I think of the same type of analogy when it comes to your beds. I wouldn't want to go much smaller than a 15-gallon container. I've seen, Mountain Organics has been in the same 15 or 20-gallon containers for like 7 years now. I mean, it's insane. So it can be done. I think that when you start getting into the 10-gallon range, that you could start running into issues with them drying out really quick and having to really being on top of keeping your microlife alive and happy. You might have a lot of like micro crashes in smaller pots as opposed to a larger volume.
666 Andrew is asking, I bought some coconut nectar to replace molasses. Do you think that it will have the same effect when making teas?
666 Andrew's asking about coconut nectar. I've never heard of that. So I can't speak on it. I wish I did. I'll do a little research because, you know, I'd kind of like to know what that is. That's about it.
That was the last question. We've got 35 minutes. So thank you.
All right. So
How are the blue magoos taking to your beds settled in?
someone's asking about the blue magoos and the transplant process. That went really well. I mean, I'm always a little nervous taking starts from somebody else because I don't know the light intensity, and I never think to ask when I'm picking them up. They're like, hey, were these under T5s or LED or what the hell were these under? Because I just take them home and I put them. Unplugged all my lights except for 2 Gavitas on opposite ends and put them at 600 each. So I had 1200 and put the plants kind of in the dimmest part just to kind of stave off any lumen shock. And after 12 hours, if they're not showing any kind of drooping or anything, then I'll start adding 1 light at a time. And so they did really well the first 24 hours, and I felt like it was cool to transplant them. And so they've been in the soil for over a day now, and everything's looking great. So I'm getting some method 1 in the mail in the next couple of days, and I'm going to start a foliar regime with the method 1 for my IPM, just to make sure that we didn't bring any tag-alongs.
Have you watched any of Chris Trump videos on KNF?
Somebody's asking if I've seen Chris Trump videos on KNF. I haven't, but if that's a recommendation, I'll certainly note it. And when I start to venture down that path, I'll check it out. But so far, you know, I've got a lot of people that I subscribe to, and I don't even really have the time to watch their videos. I mean, when I do my videos, I clearly don't edit them. You know, I don't even rewatch them. So sometimes people comment on something I said in the video and it doesn't make sense to me because I don't really know. I can't remember what I said in that video. So I'm really just kind of shoot the video and post it. And so I wish I had time to kind of research that stuff. And I imagine when I start to do it for my veggies outside this summer that I'll carve out some more time there. And I'll certainly note that guy. I really appreciate the heads up.
Wormworks is asking, what is your favorite seed sprout tea other than corn and barley?
Seed sprout tea. I actually don't use any seed sprout teas whatsoever. I've been using the malted barley from Mountain Organics for my enzyme content, and so that's where I'm at. Like I said, the minimalist. Right? So I don't even do the seed sprout teas or anything. I've let those guys come up with a great product that's shelf stable and concentrated, and so far it's been doing a really good job.
Virginia Living Organics asks, what do you do with your rosin chips afterwards? Ever think of coffee grinding and adding back to soil for the worms?
Virginia Living Organics asking about the rosin chips, and what I've seen so far I haven't done anything with them. I've got a bunch collected, and I've really got to take a weekend and process them. And what I think I'm going to do is put them into small bits of coconut oil warmed up, extract them, put in a new batch of rosin chips, and make a really concentrated batch of canna oil to use for edibles and for caps and whatnot. Because I think there's a lot of valuable material left in those. They're very sticky. And with low heat, you could still put those bags in the canna oil, and it'll just extract the rosin from the bags. Okay, yeah. So I think this is a good time to wrap it up. I really appreciate you guys coming out and having patience with me missing last week. And like I said, I'm probably going to do just a couple more of these, and then go back to just kind of shooting my cheesy videos. But I really appreciate you guys' support and your encouragement, because I really feel like some people are getting something out of this, and that's the whole reason I'm doing it. I really want to show people that this can be done easy, and it can be done. You could get really great yields and great results with minimal inputs, as provided you've done your homework and are providing everything necessary for that sacred union. And I really want to encourage people to grow plants and not egos. Be good, and I'll see you guys later.